now. We are so pleased you are joining us this morning. It is Monday, and what a weekend it's been. But before we get into all that, I'm so glad to welcome my guest, Nina Burley, to the program. She is an author. She is the author of a New York Times bestseller and the author of the new book, The Trump Women, Part of the Deal. Everybody, Nina Burley.
Hello, nice to meet you, Alex.
Yes, nice to see you this morning. So I want to get into your book and a little bit about Donald Trump and his relationship to women, which you've written a really incredible book that's out tomorrow about his relationship with women and how it's formed his views on women, which I think is very salient and important to talk about. But first, we want to talk about the passing of the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died at the age of 86 on Friday after a long bout with kidney cancer. And Nina, what are your thoughts on RBG, the passing of RBG?
Well, she represents an era of enormous empowerment of women. When she was young, when she got to law school, she was one of the few women in law school, one of the few lawyers in her law firm, female lawyers, probably the only one. I don't have the details on that. And then she went on to this career of really making a difference in women's working lives and empowering women to become, where we are today, where women assume that they're going to go to college if they can pay for it, and assume that they're going to get into a law firm, and assume that they can run for office. And none of those things were presumed when she was younger, and she was the catalyst, literally, for many of these legal advances for women that empowered women. So the passing is, of course, very sad, but we celebrate her legacy, and it will not die with her. Whether or not they put an anti-Roe judge on there and flip Roe, these things are not going to go backwards, as much as people may want to see that happen.
Yeah, and I think I need to offer a correction to our viewers. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was 87 at the time of her passing, and she was a champion of gender equality, and so and really in her 80s became sort of an icon and she's been a champion ever since I was in law school back a decade ago. She was my favorite RBG, so I have a personal, I personally mourning the loss because she really was a champion for anyone who views himself as the other. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she passed on Friday, and on the subject of, by the way, you're getting a lot of welcomes this morning. Peter Bittner, Chris Drago, our viewers are all saying hello, and they're very happy you're here. But on the topic of gender equality, Donald Trump, of course, has a pretty scattered history with women. He claims to be the best woman president, but has many, many allegations of sexual misconduct that have been leveraged against him. And the famous Access Hollywood tape, of course, right before the 2016 presidential election, where he sort of boasted about sexual assaults. And you wrote a book about the women in his life and how they shaped his views on women, going pretty far back into the early 1900s. So tell us a little bit about what you found in doing this deep dive on his relationships with women.
Well, just to the sexual assault and misconduct allegations, those are the least disempowering things that he is doing to American women. Those are terrible allegations. They're terrible events. He's affected individual women's lives in a way that for some of them is never going to be, they can never get whole or fixed because he's the president of the United States. But for him to say, or for his regime to say, he's done great things for women in office is, it's the height of like Big Brother doublespeak. I mean, not only is he somebody who has individually assaulted individual women, but the regime itself is disempowering women systematically, from the Department of Education to the the Department of Health and Human Services, um, reproductive rights, um, pay, gender equality for in pay in work. They threw out the data collection program that the Obama administration put in. I mean, these are across the board massive disempowering acts. So that's the first thing I would say about when you bring up the individual assault allegations, it's really more of a mass assault on women. The election of Donald Trump was a kick in the teeth to American women. Now, as far as what I learned in the book, I wrote the book because I was there on election night at 3 a.m. in the Hilton in New York City, and I watched him come on stage, trailed by 5 women who all kind of looked alike, all had this hair, perfectly TV ready hair, the ice skater dresses, and the 4-inch heels that they didn't have to look down coming down the stairs to get to the stage, which suggests an internal rigor and a kind of practice that is not natural to women. It's not a normal. It's not normal. If you've ever tried to walk around in 4-inch heels and you don't have to look down, you've really practiced that. And so looking at them, I thought, wow, in the space of an hour, the role model for our daughters and the face of American womanhood to the world went from a grandmother in a pantsuit with bad hair days to these TV ready kind of avatars of Donald Trump's archaic vision of the perfect female, this kind of plastic, fantastic, perfect female. Now, where does he get that archaic vision? And that, part of it is his father, like him, his father taught him that women are accessories. Women are brand accessories. They're brand accessories to the macho man that he wanted him to be. Um, uh, in his family, an awful lot of misogyny, kind of like almost shamanic, rabbinical, ancient sort of misogyny, where female biology is revolting. Marianne Trump, the older sister, came home pregnant one day. An adult came home and said to Fred Trump she was pregnant, and he was appalled, and he said, your mother had 5 children, and she never mentioned that word in our household. I mean, that's where these men are coming from. And that's why Donald Trump has to run off. He's on record saying, I can't have sex with a woman who's had children. He is on record saying that to Liz Smith. That's why he runs off after, supermodel Melania gives birth to Barron. Where is he within months of that happening? He's in bed with the porn star. He's in bed with the Playboy bunny. So the plastic, fantastic Vegas showgirl, our Donald Trump, ideal woman. And that has nothing to do with real women. It has nothing to do with real women's lives. And, the roots of misogyny really are disgust. And that's what's going on here. His father, they're part of this, and it's not just them. It's a tradition that goes, again, all the way back to kind of the ancient times, where there's this disgust with women's bodies, and he has that. So that's the foundational misogyny that comes from his family. It comes down the line from Fred Trump. It probably has something to do with the German grandmother, immigrant from a tiny little town in Germany, who came over here in the early 1900s and was widowed when Donald Trump's grandfather died of the Spanish flu. And that guy had made a bit of money running brothels in the gold rush out in the Yukon. That's where the Trump fortune starts.
Right.
The grandmother started the Trump organization with that money. She began the Trump organization. You never hear this. You never hear that a woman literally founded the Trump Organization.
Wow.
I can go on and on, Alex. Ask me another question.
And I'm impressed because you've done such excellent research on this, and just in our current political environment, we know Donald Trump refers to women as slobs and pigs and dogs. Um,
Revolting. He's revolted.
yeah, and I think it was a kick in the teeth, the 2016 election. I was at Hillary Clinton's election night party at the Javits Center at
Ooh.
3 a.m. as well, and I remember the feeling of watching the man, feeling like the idea that the woman who is the most qualified, who's clearly and excels at everything that she does, is clearly more knowledgeable, more prepared, and wins more votes than the opponent, still loses the job out to a man who calls women pigs and slobs and dogs and sexually assaults them. A question from one of the audience: how many women do you think Trump has been with? Well, we know he's sexually assaulted at least 25, allegedly. Christopher Drago says it fits together like a puzzle. Laura Camacho says, oof, brutal. So in looking at the current political, the socio-political environment that we're in, and now with the loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what is the existential threats to women's rights posed by re-electing Donald Trump and having another 4 years of this president in the White House? And why can't we convince some women that he's bad for them?
Good questions, both. First, I think once he's reelected, obviously they will continue down this path of disempowerment, using the government to disempower women. I don't think that we're going to be at Gilead, the fictional, forced childbirth, but I think we're going to be very close to forced childbirth. It'll be more like Guatemala or Brazil, or these places where women have absolutely no choice, raped, or impregnated against their will, or unable to care for babies, will not have a choice, will not be able to say, no, I don't want to carry this pregnancy to term. And contraception will be harder to come by. It already isn't easy for people who don't have money. We will be disempowered through less access to medical care, and in the workplace, the gender parity situation. I think they're going to. They've already sort of turned away from paying attention to that. It'll just continue. Women making 75 cents on the dollar. But I think also that as much as they're going to try and will be able to disempower women, and of course, really what the Supreme Court will be doing is empowering corporations and powerful people against people who are powerless. It's more about that and less about Roe v. Wade. They just use Roe v. Wade to get the so-called moral majority, or whatever they want to call themselves now, right-wing white evangelical Christians, on their side. So it really is about disempowering the less powerful and maintaining power for the white, male, wealthy people. So anyway, that's what's going to happen. What was the second question? Sorry, I got off on.
No, I'm into it, Nina. The next part of that question was, how can we, and why can't we rather, convince some women that it's bad for them?
Yeah, so what's going on with that percentage of white women who are still voting for Donald Trump? Well, first of all, let's be clear about something. Donald Trump's majority with white women, as outrageous as it was actually a much slimmer majority than what they thought at the exit poll moment. So they often use this number of, like, he had 53% of white women, or something like 7 or 8 points more than Hillary did. When they got to looking at the actual vote, it was much, much closer to almost an even tie. I mean, it was maybe 2%. So within the margin of error, there were more white women voting for Trump than Hillary, but not by a lot. That said, why do any women vote for Donald Trump? And I think part of it has to do with the husband. In this country, there are lots of women will vote with their husbands. You go to places like Texas and down south. I mean, it's like a different country down there. And there are parts of it where you feel like women are supposed to walk behind their men and don't interrupt me. And I mean, that's a real thing for a lot of women in this country, as bizarre as it seems to us living here in New York or in LA. It's a real thing. I think partly it's that. I think also, as you can see from the Trump rallies, this is an emotional, his movement is an emotional response to being disempowered by the elites, that kind of rage of, people who were, white people who used to be on top, who are no longer on top for various reasons, economically, mostly because the billionaires and the oligarchs and the vulture capitalists have destroyed their communities, taken their jobs. But they're being led to believe that it has to do with women and brown people and gays and transgenders who are rising up and taking away from them what they had. So this is an emotional movement, and it has nothing to do with their sense of women's rights or women getting paid. And so they're not bothered by. I mean, I use the example of my own mother, who's in her 90s. She's not a Trumper, but when this all started, when the Bush tapes came out, Billy Bush tapes came out, I still remember her saying, "Well, all men act like that," or all these powerful men do that,
Right.
and that's true. I mean, Clinton, JFK, these people, these men have enormous sexual appetites, if not called sexual addictions. Clinton for sure, JFK for sure. These were sex addicts, I guess you would call them now. So, you know, so to that extent, and Donald Trump comes of age at a point where, his idol was Hugh Hefner. I mean, that was the model. That is the model. He would love to have a harem of plastic surgery, plastic surgically altered women around him. I mean, that's the
Right.
dream.
Yes, and he's been on record talking about women's chest sizes and how only a certain chest size is appropriate for him, really degrading comments to women throughout his life, but also since he became a nominee for president. Sarah Conley from is chiming in from Arkansas to say that she confirms that you are 100% correct about stereotypical Southern women, I think, with regards to their relationship to voting with their husbands. And Christopher Draga is expressing some concern about Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee. Of course, this morning we learned that Nancy Pelosi, because it always takes a strong woman, in my opinion, proud feminist, Nancy Pelosi is saying that she is not ruling out impeachment to prevent the Republicans from seating their next Donald Trump Supreme Court nominee, after they made a big spectacle in 2016 of preventing Barack Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, from having an up or down vote or even going through the confirmation process at all. And they did that in 2016 because they said that it was an election year. Now, of course, they are changing their tunes. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, is saying that he's going to have confirmation hearings and seat the next nominee of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is projecting that the pick is going to be a woman. Is this a distraction? Is this meant to assuage these fears and these issues that we're talking about here today?
Well, for sure, it's a distraction. I mean, it's like Bush putting Clarence Thomas on the court. I mean, it's great. Find an anti-choice woman. Find a woman who, goes along with the Women for Trump slogan is empower. They do this hour to empower. I mean, they've stolen that word. I write about this all the time, that they've stolen this word that was, it's a United Nations word about empowering women who live in, third world countries to get microloans. They've empower, like, what is empowering about Donald Trump for women? Well, the women who are for Trump, there are conservative women, I've studied them for a long time, who have benefited from the things that Ruth Bader Ginsburg and other feminists of that generation won for us. They have benefited enormously from, the assumption now that women are not going to just be nurses or teachers, but you can just be whatever you want if you go to school, and if you're smart enough. They've benefited from all of these gains, and yet they are not acknowledging it. They don't sisterhood or the support of other women, um, or government programs that support women specifically are not things that they accept as they don't need help. That's we don't need any help. We got here on our own. It's this concept of we did like Sarah Palin, bear hunting, the kind of primal pioneer woman mythology of America, that goes along with all of this. I'm an entrepreneur. I did it myself. But then when you scratch the surface of it, for many of them, they didn't do it by themselves. Ivanka Trump did not do it by herself. There's a story today in Forbes. In her book, she talks about how her daddy would think of giving her a free apartment in Trump Tower. I paid full price for it. And now there's this Forbes book out today that's saying, in fact, she got, like $1 million off on it or something. I mean, they're just full of lies. They never did get there by themselves. Donald Trump didn't get where he is by himself. He didn't pull himself up by the bootstraps. Fred Trump bankrolled him hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a canard that Trump is empowering women. It's a ridiculous use of the word, but it's like liberty, Liberty University. It's like one of those words that doesn't mean anything anymore. Like what is liberating about going to Jerry Falwell's university? Unless you're Jerry Falwell yourself, Junior, and you just ignore your own rules and go have threesomes with the pool boy.
Right, and what a spectacle that was. We're running out of time this morning. C Month wants us to wish Krissa a happy birthday. So happy birthday, Krissa. Happy birthday. I've been joined this morning by Nina Burley. She's a New York Times bestselling author of the new book, The Trump Women, Part of the Deal, which is out tomorrow. Nina, where can people find your book and where can people find you?
You can find my book on Amazon. You can buy it on Kindle. You can buy it in paperback. I don't know if anybody's going to bookstores, and your local bookstore should have it. And you can find me on Twitter at Nina Burley, and you can find me on my website, ninaburley.com. And I'll be doing other television and radio and podcasts for the coming weeks. So I look forward to talking about this more. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
Hey, thank you for joining. I'm so glad I got to nab you before your press tour. This has been the AM Report with Alex Mahajer for Haps News, the network of now. If you liked this journalism and like this content, please consider sponsoring it. Buy me a cup of coffee because this one is running out. Visit me at haps.tv/@AlexMahajer. We are live every weekday morning at 7:30 a.m., 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. Thanks, Nina, for joining. And thanks to everybody at home. Christopher Drago says, thank you, Nina. Such a pleasure. Johnny Garcia.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, see you later. Good luck with the book.
Bye-bye.